Thank you all, and thanks for your patience as we navigate technology here. So first, I would like to acknowledge that we are coming to you from Carleton University, which is on the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. So I want to also acknowledge the huge amount of work that goes into a project like this. We want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to so many people, all of the organizations that we worked with, and who really shared our vision and motivation to be innovative in the area of physical activity. So I want to introduce the fantastic team that I get to work with daily. So I'm Francine. I'm a researcher at Carleton University, and most of my work focuses on social inequities and physical activity access. So to my right, we have Candace Roberts, who has worked with me for 6 years. She is a PhD candidate. She did her master's and her PhD in the 6 years, and is focused on social learning theory in her work. Next, we have Grace McCune, who is a postdoctoral fellow and an exercise physiologist from Australia, who joined our team almost a year ago. And then we have Nadine Simpson, who started as actually a participant in our study, and she was so wonderful that we recruited her to become part of our community advisory board, then a community-based research assistant, and she is now a master's candidate at Carleton University as part of our team. Anna, I think, needs no introduction. She is a force. She is a fitness instructor. She instructs all types of physical activity, and she has been one of the instructors that's delivered some programs for us in Ottawa. Okay, so why is sorry, Candace, I was supposed to put you in charge of doing this. So why is physical activity important? We know that physical activity can improve overall mental health, decrease symptoms related to PTSD, depression, anxiety, sleep disturbances. In fact, in the most recent British Journal of Sports Medicine, there was a provocative article titled, "Could not prescribing exercise for depression be psychiatric malpractice?" And so they wrote this article based on recent meta-analyses that demonstrate that exercise has antidepressant effects comparable to those of medication and psychotherapy. In addition to this, it has simultaneous multi-system benefits to physical health, sorry. And so one of the areas that I want to challenge people to think about is when we look at supports for gender-based violence in the world of gender-based violence, we really should be looking at and considering physical activity. So what we deliver is what we call trauma and violence-informed approaches to physical activity. And so across this presentation, you'll hear different examples of that. But it's really taken a model from nursing. I was fortunate to work with Dr. Colleen Varcoe at UBC, who has had a really profound impact on the field. And so we drew the tenets of trauma awareness, strength, space, and capacity building approach, an emphasis on safety and fostering choice and collaboration into all aspects of our research and the intervention delivery. So our programming was delivered across 3 cities and 4 sites in Ottawa, Vancouver, and Toronto. So the objective of our work was to address or improve the quality of life of women and children who have experienced inequities, and we were funded through the Public Health Agency of Canada Family Violence Prevention Call. So we co-created our trauma and violence-informed physical activity programs with community members and local organizations. So central to this work was community advisory boards. And then we co-launched the programming with women in these communities. So in thinking about what these would look like, we landed on, again, with this collaborative approach, 1 year of programming that was delivered in 6-week blocks. So we had a range of physical activities. We had everything from yoga, swimming, non-contact boxing, you name it. We essentially tried it at least across one of the sites. So part of this work was hiring physical activity trainers like Anna and supporting them in developing or maybe evolving their approaches to be trauma-informed. Some additional considerations that we think are important to note was that given the inequities that existed in the communities we were going into, we need to ensure that the social determinants of health were being met. So we offered all of the equipment and gear that would be necessary to take part in programming. We offered running shoes, sports hijabs, sports bras, and we made a strong effort to ensure that the places and spaces felt safe for the participants. And importantly, childcare was a huge component of that. So we offered childcare or child and youth physical activity programming. We ran some basketball programs and running programs, which we won't touch on today given time constraints. So we had over 250 women take part in interventions across the sites. Of these, 168 took part in the research. These numbers here sort of represent a number of touch points that we had with individuals in these communities. So as you can see, we had almost 3,000 touch points. So what we were interested in looking at was overall impact on health, including mental health, physical health, and then quality of life. So in our co-development of materials with participants, we asked them, did this program have an impact on these, 3 specific areas? And the outcomes kind of speak for themselves. We had over 90%, as you can see, 95, 90, and 93 reported that this had a very positive impact on their lives. We also co-developed our questionnaires with our community advisory boards. So at each session people attended, we had a pre-check-in and a post-check-in. So this was a simple Likert scale, how did you feel before? How did you feel after? And we looked at a couple key measures. So one of them was, how would you rate your mood? And what we saw across the board was that people were feeling better after they attended a class. And what's more challenging to measure or assess is looking at changes over time. So if people were coming for a longer time, did we see improvements, or what touch points could we look at? So our preliminary analysis looking at mood, we saw that on average, participants' mood increased by just under 1 point, which was considered a large effect. So additionally, one of the really interesting things about this was that when we compared between sites or the different types of physical activity, there was no significant difference. So essentially it means that all of the groups were experiencing similar improvements in mood, despite the type of activity. So if we can get people moving, doing an activity they like, we can see some really positive changes. So now I'm passing it over to Candace.
Thanks, Francine. And before I start and before I move on from the slide, I just want to note that all the pictures that you see in our presentation are pictures from the intervention itself, or from our community advisory board meetings, etc. So from the outset of this research, you recognize the importance of meaningfully engaging with service providers like Anna, since they are directly responsible for putting trauma and violence-informed physical activity strategies into practice. The literature highlights a clear gap that while TVIPA programs are increasing, there's limited capacity and diversity of programming available. And there's few opportunities for collaboration between practitioners and researchers in the area. So as such, my area of research was focused on service providers with the following guiding research objective, which was to examine service providers' knowledge uptake, development, and implementation of TVIPA strategies for women. Over the duration of the study, we engaged service providers in a structured social learning space informed by intersectional social learning theory. And I want you to keep in mind the presentation we had this morning about communities of practice, because communities of practice does kind of fall into this realm of social learning theory, social learning spaces. Traditionally, research on social learning spaces has been grounded in social learning theory by the Wagner trainers. This framework emphasizes collaboration, knowledge exchange, and reflection as a mechanism to improve practice, all of which we heard this morning. We selected it for our study because it aligns with TVIPA initiatives where collective engagement is key to promising and promoting practice change and empowering participants. By creating opportunities for shared experiences and critical reflection, we anticipated that social learning spaces would enhance service providers' ability to integrate trauma and violence-informed approaches across diverse contexts. We added to this theory by incorporating an intersectional component, and we call it intersectional social learning theory herein. This allows us to focus on the experiences of service providers while also centering the identities of the providers and the individuals they serve as they engage in different activities to promote access to uptake of TVIPA. Looks like there's 8, but there's 4. To support our research objective, we involve service providers in a range of social learning space activities as outlined on this slide. So at the start, we conducted interviews with service providers to understand their expectations. What did they want out of the space? And what did they hope to gain from participating? Throughout the project, providers were invited to take part in the TVIPA landscape of practice in a more focused community of practice, much like we saw today. They were also invited to complete our training modules, which Grace will talk a little bit more about. And then during the intervention phase, they were also joined by research team members who offered both informal and formal support and feedback on programming. And so ultimately, our research found that engaging in a social learning space informed by intersectional social learning theory had numerous benefits and key characteristics to being successful. 1, service providers emphasize the importance of accessible training modules and shared materials. These tools help reinforce fidelity to the tenets of TVIPA and create consistency across programs. An actively engaged facilitator was seen as critical. Their role is to guide trauma-informed practice, keep participants connected, and sustain momentum. Peer-to-peer interactions provided opportunities to share challenges and strategies. This kind of mutual support helped providers manage the complex realities of their work and the communities they enter. Spaces work best when they encourage reflection on positionality, so recognizing the identities and the diverse identities in the social contexts made programming more contextually relevant. Clear and reliable communication channels mattered, especially with a blend of virtual and in-person touch points. In-person interactions in particular help build trust and stronger connections. And in the absence of clear communication channels, there were, I don't say challenges, but challenges adapting the program. Finally, providers valued having multiple avenues of engagement, such as online and in-person meetings. Flexibility allowed them to participate in a way that accommodated their schedule and personal preferences. And so in conclusion, we found that the formal integration of social learning spaces are important for enhancing research, learning outcomes, and empowering practitioners across different disciplines to share knowledge. And with that, I'm going to turn it to Grace.
Okay, awesome. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining this session this afternoon. So I'm going to be talking about the development and evaluation of online trauma and violence-informed training modules. And so these training modules were originally developed to support those service providers across our 4 sites. But since then, there's been great reach, not only from a range of professionals in different settings and professional backgrounds, but also across multiple countries. And I'll talk about some of those numbers in a moment. And so if you want to have a look at those training modules, I'll just highlight the QR code up the top right. These are freely accessible and they are available in both French and in English. And so these training modules went through a really thorough development process. So the team conducted a series of interviews over a 12-month period. I think there was over 100 interviews conducted, both with community partners, colleagues, experts in the field. And then this was combined with a series of literature reviews, which then informed the development and the content of the training. And then finally, we revised them and conducted an evaluation, which I will talk about in a moment. I can still see people scanning the QR code, so I'll just give you, hopefully it's not too small. Not scanning, okay. We'll hand those out at the end. Wow, that's a lot of boxes. So there's only 6 training modules, which people can go through at their own pace. And so the first 3 training modules are really focused on key concepts to do with trauma and violence-informed care. It goes through statistics around prevalence of trauma and violence, the impacts of trauma and violence on behaviours, on our physical health, on our mental health. It goes through vicarious trauma. And then the final 3 modules are more practical focused. So these, it's the aircon. The last 3 modules are more practical focused. So it goes through ways that providers and exercise facilitators can adapt their language to be more inclusive, more trauma informed, and avoid sort of commanding language, which often exercise instructors have been taught to utilize. And I'm sure people have had those experiences, often negative experiences in exercise sessions. And then module 5 and 6, they allow us to go through some real life case studies. And there's opportunities there, which links in with Candice's work, where people can discuss their experiences with the training on online discussion boards with each other. And then the final module, we have some additional resources which people can download and utilize in their contexts. So I've just taken some screenshots of the training modules. So the top left, this is an example of the educational material. So this is an image which showcases some of the intersecting barriers to physical activity. So things like discrimination, poverty, lack of transport options, etc. Then on the bottom left, we can see this is one of our real life case study examples. This is a program called Presidential Basketball, which runs in Ottawa, where they support youth who are discriminated against, racialised and disadvantaged to engage through basketball programs to improve their mental and physical health. And then on the right, we have one of the examples of those downloadable resources. So this tool allows a gym or a community centre to rate their own service or program based on accessibility. So it goes through things like, are the signs in your service or gym accessible? Are women utilising your service? Is it free or inexpensive? Things that often gyms haven't actually thought about in terms of accessibility. Now, this is an infographic which we have developed to be published alongside the publication, which has just recently been accepted. So this is the results of the evaluation of the study, which we conducted. So what we did was we assessed people's knowledge and confidence to apply trauma and violence-informed physical activity, so their knowledge, but also their confidence to apply it. And so at the time of conducting this evaluation, we had 205 people take part. But since then, in the 6 months post that, we've now had over 850 people take part. So now that we've publicised this on social media, there's been huge uptake, which clearly shows a need and a gap in terms of this training model for these professionals. And so at the time, though, of those 205, we had 75% complete both the baseline and the follow-up questionnaire. And they were professionals from a very wide range of diverse backgrounds. So we had allied health professionals, so physiotherapists, exercise physiologists, fitness instructors, front of desk staff, service providers. So anyone sort of involved at a community site that may be interested in delivering such a program. And what was really promising to see, we saw significant changes in both people's knowledge and their confidence to apply TVIPA. We also then conducted interviews 6 months post people taking part in the training. And this was with our 4 community sites. So we conducted 17 interviews to understand, were those changes that people reported at post the intervention, were they sustained? And if so, what did that look like in practice? And so what we heard was that people were they had far more awareness of the reasons that people may not be able to turn up to an exercise session. They were far more aware of adapting their physical spaces. So things like whether there's curtains on the windows, whether we're giving people choice of whether the door is open or closed. And this also allowed us to get some feedback qualitatively as well on people's experience with going through the training modules. I've just pulled up one of the graphs. This is looking at, so we can visually see how people's their confidence in applying trauma and violence informed training changed from pre to post. So the training's designed to be about 4 to 4.5 hours in length. And so just after that training, we can see, it's very hard to read, but in blue, what we have is people's scores beforehand. So most people were not at all confident to apply TVIPA. And then following, we can see in the orange that 100% of people were at least somewhat confident, and we had over a quarter of people reporting being very confident. Now I'm just going to briefly touch on the phase of research that we are in at the moment. So what we're really interested in looking at now is the sustainability phase. So we've had the research team leading the delivery of those programs across those different sites over the past few years. And then this year, what we have been doing is those community sites are leading it themselves. So what we're interested in looking at now is through a mixed methods approach. We're looking at the fidelity of those programs and how they're now being delivered. And so the research team are conducting observations of the program at those different sites. And we've developed a fidelity checklist, which helps us understand, is the program still being delivered in the way that it was intended and still adopting those trauma and violence informed principles in the work that we're doing. So we're also looking at things like, is childcare still being offered? Are people evaluating their own programs, etc.? And then we're pairing that with interviews with the service providers across those different sites to understand how it's been adopted, how it's now being implemented, and then we're really interested in how we sustain these types of programs and what are the factors that are important. So we're almost through those interviews now. Most sites are wrapping up before the end of the year now.
It's a little bit bigger, so you might be able to get this one. We do have one copy up here, so there's only one, I think. So the QR code is right there for this report. So I'm Nadine. I'm going to share some things that came out of this project. And the actual report is like 30 pages long, so we're only going to show a few of the slides here. So the QR code is helpful. Everyone good? So this is what we call the StoryMap. This is the cover. It's our community, and it's called the Reclaiming Recreation in the Banff-Ledbury Community. It was created by PhD grad student Maddie Shepard-Perkins in collaboration with myself and the Community Advisory Board and the community members and the Banff Avenue Community House. We all work together in a community-based research methods type of way, collaborating, honestly, we did interviews and community walkthroughs, and Maddie really took that information, really listened to what we were saying, and was able to go and find the evidence to support what we were saying. So we put this report together, and I'll show you some of what we found. So this is Banff-Ledbury. From above, it looks like a beautiful place with lots of green space And it is. It looks like it's got nearby transportation, a pool, a community center. It looks fabulous, but it's actually what we call a recreation desert. There was not a lot of accessible, appropriate, or affordable recreation happening. There was actually none happening for some of us. Yes. So, let me see. Yes. So when you look at what was actually happening in our community, to get to the transportation, we had to walk across this busy bridge. And what Maddie found was police reports that showed that we had the highest incidence of traffic incidents in our area. So not fun. The Ottawa street light map showed that our community was one of the darkest places in the community. So we were always saying, it's so dark, the lights are always out, but Maddie was able to find the evidence to show that it actually is dark. You know, we're not just talking. Okay, so let's not break yet. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. Can you tell? So through community engagement with our local community house and with the community members, we were able to identify 4 main priorities for the community. We involved the youth. So of course, the first one was they wanted a full-size basketball court. The second one was creating a paved walkway through that park. And I think maybe there's one after. Is there? Oh, okay, great. And then the third one was to have increased street lighting. And then the fourth one was to have consistent access to free, low-cost on-site programs. So we were able to use this tool. Actually, in the picture there, that's our community meeting with our city councillor. So we use this tool to be able to show evidence that what we were complaining about was really happening. We met with the city councillor several times. We met with urban park planners and other stakeholders in the community. Everyone was invited. So to date, we have confirmation that the bridge that I showed earlier is going to be redone with walking paths and bike lanes. And it's, yeah. And our park is going to get a makeover, and it's going to have a full-size basketball court and a walking path so that everybody can, you know, have accessible access to recreation. The Banff Avenue Community House was able to secure funding for an additional year of programming. That year is about coming to an end. So, you know, if anybody's got pockets of money, come talk to us later. And I just wanted to add that the program has really been really special to me. I was sitting at home when this program first started. I was at home feeling lost, you know, after COVID. There was nothing. It was a very desperate time, and physically I felt like I couldn't move. I was in so much pain. And somehow somebody encouraged me to come to this program. And from the first day I walked in and saw the smiling faces and met Anna and started to learn how I could move my body slowly, you know, that coming to work out didn't mean that I had to just go hard, you know, that I could take my time and do it at my own pace. It's just made such a big difference to me. Sorry for time. But yeah, emotionally and physically, And our community is such a different place now. We used to all walk around with our heads down. Now we're walking around, we're all like, hey, how's it going? We all know each other. We all know each other's kids. So that's actually going to be the next part of my research, is looking at how these programs can create such a difference for social housing, right? Because social housing is often such an unsafe place for people, and our community is such a beautiful place now. So thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much, team. We are having some tech issues here. We are very hopeful. Knowledge mobilization has been a huge part of our work at every stage. And we've worked with our community advisory boards and community members to really develop tools that will be helpful for them and support in advocating for more physical activity and recreation in communities and within different types of organizations. So we're very hopeful that we have a 10-minute video. Okay, yeah, we don't need the rest of the slide. So we have a 10-minute video that was an idea for knowledge mobilization so that we could attend meetings like this and actually share the experiences of participants like Nadine, who is also a part-time movie star after this. And I do invite you, we have our QR codes up here if you wanted to access any of our resources. So hopefully we have some volume. You can get it started whenever. Thank you so much. Physical activity has been identified as a key public health priority to improve mental health and to prevent, chronic diseases. However, what we know is that physical activity is not accessible for everyone. There are certain groups and populations that are excluded from programming and different types of interventions. Women suffer from twice the rates of depression compared to male counterparts. And when we look further into issues such as gender-based violence, we know globally that 1 in 3 females will experience gender-based violence in their lifetime. So when we think about access to physical activity, we know that it's not equal for everybody. In a lot of Equity O communities, there's major barriers: the cost of programming, transportation to and from programming, and often things that we're not thinking about is childcare for programming, and the different sort of essentials that people need to take part in physical activity. So when we take a trauma and violence-informed approach, we're really taking an equity-oriented approach to program delivery. Thinking about the individuals that are attending our programming, what their lived experience may be, and delivering programming in a way that works for them. For our research, we partnered and launched with 3 equity-owed communities in Canada. We have the Banff Ledbury community in Ottawa, we have St. Mary's Home in Vanier, and we have Crabtree Corner, which is in the downtown east side of Vancouver.
Last year at this time of the year, I was depressed. I was going through postpartum depression. I was alone. I was with a baby. I had heartbroken, single mom for the first time. When I started Moms in Motion, we started by going to the parks. I loved that. It relieved me. I started becoming interested, and I loved the boxing and the dancing, and now the yoga.
Maman au mouvement, c'est différent parce que là, on est réunis tout ensemble, les mamans qui viennent d'accoucher, ceux qui sont enceintes. Avant de faire l'activité, on dit un peu ce que nous, on ressent, ce qu'on veut faire. Comme l'autre fois, on avait de mal au dos et on a fait de physique par rapport à notre situation.
It was all our ideas. It was all about us. It was what we wanted. It was what we needed. And it was what we felt would make it accessible to us. It broke down those barriers that we all face every day. And I think that's essentially what made the program work, was that it was all about us, and we had a say in what we wanted to do, and we had a say in what made it easy, and that's what made it work.
A depressed mom will lead to a depressed child. And then if we can have our own space to breathe and be ourselves, that would help in our daily lives. It's like you start fresh.
Barriers to participating in physical activity are numerous, especially for women and women who are parenting, and especially in this community, the downtown east side. A lot of the places that do offer physical activity programming are like by membership, where you need to pay, or there's not childcare available. And also just there's a lot of fear of accessing new spaces.
We're all practicing together. So we're all enjoying dance together or yoga together. We get input from the community. What would you like to do? What would you like to see more of? So it engages a conversation with them, and they feel that they have each other and a sense of autonomy in their practice and togetherness. It's offering them an accessible, sort of invitational environment to be together in. They feel safe. They're in an environment which is always the same. There are no big changes. They know what they're coming into. There's childcare provided, and it's very accessible to any self-identifying woman.
Knowing I had a place to go, that I was accepted, judgment free, and no matter how crappy I looked, nobody commented on it. And no matter how badly I was dancing or how bad I was doing in whatever fitness activity we were doing, nobody commented. They were just like, "You're doing so good, keep going." So yeah, that was always having a positive place to go weekly was really nice.
I think that the way that this program is structured is it's the informal nature of it, of just coming together, having a set time to meet every week, knowing that people are going to be there when you show up, engaging in physical activity with other moms, other people that are dealing with similar circumstances in their life, helped create a sense of community within the group.
So we had over 250 individuals take part in our programming. And of those, we had 168 people take part in the research. It was optional to take part in the research component of this work. We wanted to ensure people, really had a choice to participate or not. Across sites, participants ranged from 17 to 79 years old, and we had a diversity of cultural and educational backgrounds. But one of the things we found was that there were a lot of challenges with mental health, particularly related to anxiety and depression.
So when we're talking about physical activity, it doesn't need to be a huge amount of activity for us to reap the benefits. So you can do as little as 10 to 15-minute bouts of activity have shown to have meaningful changes in mental health outcomes. And it's often where we see the greatest benefit is when we get people who are doing no activity whatsoever to doing something.
So when we asked participants about the impact of the program, 95% reported improved quality of life and mental health.
My mental health changing has also changed my quality of life. It feels like I'm living in the same place, doing similar things, and yet I feel like my quality of life is so much better.
We've been really fortunate to receive funding from Public Health Agency of Canada and other organizations to do this work. So we've been able to test and refine our intervention, but we really struggle when funding cycles end. This often leads to communities not being able to continue programming due to a lack of financial resources, which either leads to, pauses in programming or, worst case scenario, cancellations. I think the key to our programming is the consistency and knowing that they can show up each week and have that support and move in a way that feels good for them, but know that they have a community of people around them.
Going and feeling like I can do this, all of a sudden I can move. I used to feel like I couldn't move, because I was in pain and it was so hard.
I've struggled a lot in my life. I've come from, being a young mom at 15 years old. I've gone through addiction. There've been parts of my life where I felt like I had nobody and nothing. And having programs like this changes that feeling. These are things that are deeply ingrained in me. And the Healthy Hustle, it provides such a safe, open-minded, healthy place to be that I can't imagine my life without it.
So there is another thing we called an old thing, the good mind, the good brain mind is in the good body. So if you move your body, that means your mental health is good. Is it important to continue? Yes. With us, as I said, it's the only program for moms, and we feel humans. We recharge our bodies from, we disconnect from the outside and recharge ourselves so we can continue the fight for ourselves, for our families, for the moving on, for the next week.
Thank you, and thanks for your patience with the sound. So that kind of brings our presentation to an end, but we are happy to answer any questions that you may have. I also invite you, Anna's taking the stage at, I guess, right after this for about half hour for a bit of a movement session if anybody is interested. But also feel free if you need to shuffle around to other sessions.
So the question is, something I've heard from some survivors is that they want the mental health benefits from exercise, but then it backfires because the physiological responses that it causes are triggering. Are you able to share any strategies or insights?
Okay, I'll tackle this first. So funny enough, I'm part of the session this afternoon, and this is one of the things that I bring up in thinking about the importance of taking a trauma and violence informed approach when integrating physical activity for that exact reason, right? A stress response, a trauma response is very similar to engaging in physical activity. And even when we take part in something like yoga, that focus on your breath can also be potentially triggering. So it's a huge challenge. In our training, we do try to address that a little bit. Grace is our in-house exercise physiologist. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, good question. So yeah, a lot of the symptoms, the increased heart rate, the sweating are symptoms that survivors often experience. But that can also be one of the really helpful mechanisms. So if you do it in a really gradual way where someone is supported, they're trusting you, it can actually really support someone in understanding that those symptoms, they can be safe and experience those symptoms. So that's often one of the mechanisms that where we see that people's symptoms of anxiety improve when they're supported in a way that they can experience these in a safe manner. But yeah, it does require a lot of training with the exercise professionals facilitating this, which often exercise professionals have not received any training in this space. So a gradual approach in that way can be really helpful.
I love it so much. This program, I've been in the fitness industry for quite some time, and I think for me as an instructor, I never thought about how important just saying something like, hey, I'm going to turn the lights down a little bit, or I'm going to close the door, or using invitational languages instead of commanding language. I didn't realize how important that was. And so this really informed me, and now I use it across all my classes. Yeah.
I just wanted to add that as a participant in the program, not knowing about the tools that are being used, I just know that so I'm thinking back now because I've never heard that question about having the same responses. And I'm thinking back to times where I felt like crying in the session, and I thought it was just my depression or, but what is really helpful is that the setting that is set, it's so different than a normal workout class. It's like, if you look sad, the setting is set that we can come and, just, are you okay? Would you like a hug? It's just so supportive. I honestly, I never thought about that. And I've had several sessions where I felt not great in the middle of the session, and having that support, having that supportive environment, I ended up getting back into it and continuing the movement. And by the end of it, feeling much better than when I came in.
I'll also just add one more thing. So each of our sites is quite different. So Banff Community House is part of a social housing community. So the programming takes part in the community. And then at Crabtree Corner in the downtown east side, we have to access physical activity spaces away from the center. They just don't have the capacity to do it there. So that program, we are connected with support staff from the organization as well. So we have additional supports on site and at the programs. Similarly, at Banff Community House, one of the full-time employees there attends every session. So we have a number of supports in place, but I think, again, it's such a great question because it just really enforces the need for trauma and violence-informed approaches. We can't just tell people, oh, physical activity will have these benefits for you. We need to create the space that people can come in and safely access those benefits.
I don't know where to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way it's currently set up, we have an online training, and it's totally free, accessible to anyone. We're in the process. Our funding is running out in March, so we, unfortunately, there's so much we could do to expand and grow, which we'll continue to seek funding to do. So I think that would be a great starting point. I'm happy to have conversations. Anyone from our team would be glad to connect with this individual as well.